This is what I kind of quoted. Because of lack of time, I made already 30 handouts. I cannot cover it in 1 hour, so I left many quotations. I hope you will bear with this. Later on, we can probably come there. So then, there is another added reason according to Lakan this. Moreover, had he immediately gone for his stepfather, go for a stepfather means go for killing him, wouldn't this be because he had found a perfect opportunity to get rid of, I made a mistake here, to get rid of his own guilt. That means he could have killed him. Lakan says that there are two reasons why he should kill him. Because his father told him, and if Freudian assumption is correct, he desires his mother. So if he thought his own father as a competitor, why he not think of his uncle as another competitor? So there is no reason he should not kill him. Moreover, if he felt guilty in the childhood, that I wanted to kill my father but I did not, happily. But this uncle killed, so by killing the uncle I can get rid of my own guilt. This is Lacan's internal critique of the early new Freudian analysis. Now, Lacan says that the real question is elsewhere. It is a question of desire, but people have made this simple mistake. It is not a question of the child's desire for the mother, but it is the child's assumption of the mother's desire. For example, the man mother desires, the child also desires it. That is why probably he cannot kill. This is Lacanian. I just summarized from this issue 25, 1982, on page 20. This is in the French edition. The desire at stake is far from being Hamlet's desire. It is not his desire for his mother. Rather, it is his mother's desire. His mother's desire for his, let us say now, his uncle. He knows that mother loves that uncle. Now he is at a loss whether to kill. If the early neo-Freudian explanation were correct, then he would have got rid of his own guilt feeling as well as he would got rid of a rival and he would take possession of his mother. But he cannot do this. Why he cannot do this? This is our question. He loses his desire, we will see. Once he comes to know that his father was murdered and most treacherously, and it was told to him by no other figure than the ghost of his own father. He did not get it from hearsay, he did not get it from rumor. Suppose he did not see, it was an illusion, it was an imaginary. But at the same time, he heard it from that imaginary voice. It is almost like revelation. After that, the whole perspective changes. Then his inaction begins. And we'll see. For example, I'm making a fast run through the material, then after we'll come back. This is the most talked about. I'm guided by you see, man's desire is the desire of the other. My desire is also your desire. Because people want to know about the most difficult things. This is called the famous closet scene. He confronts his mother and takes mother to task. Mother, how could you not even wait 3 months? How could you not even wait for me to return? And your husband, old good husband is dead, and you immediately got rid of him, even of his memory, and got married. You did not go through the ritual of iddat as Muslims do. So what is this? It says, why and how can she desire this spiteful, inadequate, unworthy object, this king of shreds and patches? This is from Hamlet's own soliloquy. He talks about the king. This is a king. A king is a thing of nothing. He almost speaks in a Lacanian vein. I don't know who influences whom. Shakespeare was almost Lacanian. You will see this. Well, what is a king? He says that a king is a thing of nothing. That means Lacan famously says, the man who thinks he is the king is a fool. There is a reason why. The great famous French king in the late 18th century or early 17th century said what? I am the state. And like I said, he must be a fool. Let us see, there are many fools among us also, by the way. This is nothing new. Then the second question is this. How could she, the name is Gertrude, mother, abandon so quickly, without waiting even a month, the splendid object? I wrote very quickly, probably this should not be there. The splendid object that was Hamlet's father, and go for this wretch that can give her but some fleeting satisfaction. That means in the closet scene, Hamlet was confronting his mother with this question, how could you not wait? And okay, but how could you go for this wretched thing? Your husband was such a great man, such a noble man, how could you not live up to that standard? this has become a point of feminist debate, but I will hold on that right now. What is Hamlet's business choosing a husband for her mother? But he says that the memory of the father is here, so you betrayed. This is the point. The question of knowledge and the question of betrayal will come. Now let us go back a little bit. What is the point of Goethe's criticism? His point that the tragedy is a tragedy of knowledge. Hamlet knew too much, so he could not act. This is a common criticism against advanced theory. Too much theory will lead you to no action. No ball. It's a no ball theory, right? And the other desire is, what is the Freudian criticism? In one word, we love all one word criticism, that it is desire. Hamlet's own desire has prevented him from killing. So the two explanations come from two different ends, knowledge and desire. And you will say, Lakan will say that it is both a question of desire as well as of knowledge. Goethe, though a great poet, can be a bad critic. That is Lacan's point. See, the question of knowledge comes here. For example, this is Goethe criticism refuted in 4 points. I have learned this from ULab, how to make things in bullet points so that students like it. That is one point. On several occasions, we say that Hamlet is a man in action. Believe me, I have a book here. I will show you the page of the book. I will not read it probably. No, I didn't bring it here. The book says that perhaps Hamlet was a woman in disguise. That's why he cannot act. Believe me. In the 19th century, some critic wrote that Hamlet was a woman in disguise. Another said he was too fat. That's why he could not act. There are many other things. He should have gone to the gyms and other slimming mechanisms. But what does Lacan points out these 4 things? To refute Goethe, he says this, on several occasions we have seen Hamlet has no problem whatsoever with acting. So how can you say he is unable to act? Yes, he is unable to kill Claudius. There we need a particular explanation. General explanation will not work. For example, he did the following actions. He kills Polonius without a twitch. This is how my friend Shanwas Kabir began this presentation. This famous or infamous Polonius. He was a spy, working like a spy for the king. And he was a sycophant. All the good virtues of modern courtier is there. So, no problem. And this Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Shakespeare used to love European Jews. These 2 members of the jury were sent along with Hamlet to England as an exile after his punishment. But on discovering the, what you call, conspiracy, Hamlet was able to kill them. Let's say he sends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to death with no remorse. And finally, the difficulty Hamlet has with this act of killing Claudius lies therefore in the nature of this particular act. Hamlet could act, he could kill, he could do other things, but he lost 2 things. You have noticed another thing. He was very friendly, he was about to marry, he was engaged with Ophelia. But all of a sudden, he lost all desire for Ophelia too. As a result of which, to make a very long story short, it leads to her suicide. But when she dies, you will see that when she was being laid to grave on the burial ground, Hamlet's desire comes back when he finds a competitor in her brother. When Laertes, in his love for his dead sister, jumps into the grave, then Hamlet stands up and says, I, Hamlet the Dane. He resumes his desire. This is what I insinuated by my second title. I said, desire lost in desire found. Let us see what happens. Hamlet's knowledge. So the real question is Hamlet's, not his too much knowledge, but a particular kind of knowledge. What is at stake, according to Lacan, is not simply Hamlet's knowledge, but his knowledge about the knowledge of his father. Because his father told him in the form of a ghost, my son, I have been murdered. Most treacherously, I have been murdered. So when a father says, I am dead, it is not enough. He says, I am dead in 2 senses. In one sense, I passed away. I am dead in my body. In another sense, I am betrayed. I am cheated out of my symbolic function. I am no more your father. You have got another father in place of your father. So that is symbolic betrayal. My friend, have you ever wondered why a father is called a dad in English without a E? deity. A father is usually called a dad. Sylvia Plath, for example, daddy, daddy. So why do you call father daddy? I don't know whether it has got any connection with this sound. I'm only making bizarre. A father by definition has to be dead. A dead father is more powerful than a living father. Actually, I wrote such an article many years ago. It was printed in Nurul Kabir's infamous New Age. It's called The Story of a Dead Father. So here, father's knowledge. What did the father know? This is, people who are sitting at the back, please, there are 2 more seats here. Please help yourselves. What distinguishes Hamlet's drama from that of Oedipus? This is the crucial question. Some people say Hamlet's desire is Oedipal desire. Lakan begs to disagree again. He says, the desire of Oedipus and desire of Hamlet are opposed to each other. For example, when Oedipus killed his father, he did not know. Moreover, his father did not know that that was his son. Similarly, when he married his mother, he did not know that it was his mother, neither did his mother knew. But in this Hamletian case, everybody knows everybody. And it was particularly whether the murder took place or not has been informed by the ghost of the father. You might take a little bit, let's say, exception to the fact of the ghost. Whether the ghost is telling him the truth or it is only imaginary or symbolic. So therefore I began my presentation with these 3 distinctions. Desire imaginary, desire symbolic, and desire real. His pain is real, but we will see the father is symbolic father, but a father can be imaginary father as well. So these 3 functions, in a mathematical sense, these are the 3 functions of the father. The question is that his father says, I was not only physically killed, I have been deprived of my symbolic function. I have been killed in the most treacherous way. And after this knowledge is revealed to Hamlet, what becomes his obligation? Here is the question. What distinguishes Hamlet's drama from that of Oedipus, and what in the first place sets off the whole drama from that of Oedipus is the fact that the father knows. The dead father knows what has happened to him, and by a mysterious way, a mystical way rather, it has been communicated. So, here is the intermixture of mixing of knowledge with desire. He knows that he is dead, which does not only refer to the empirical fact that he passed away, it refers above all to the fact that he was betrayed, that he was cheated out of his symbolic function, and that also as love object he was immediately abandoned by the queen. That he is disloved, if I may make a barbarous word like that. So mother's desire and father's knowledge together constitutes this difficult Hamlet's desire. His desire is his mother's desire, therefore he cannot kill. But his knowledge is father's knowledge, therefore he has to kill. So when you are opposed by the currents, it becomes inaction. What is at stake is not simply the fact that the other knows. When I put the word other with a capital, this is the symbolic function. When I put it with only small o, that will be called imaginary function. We have to use many other. In Bengali, we have 3 words. Apon, por, opor, poron. So por and opor, how they are different. I will talk about that another occasion. So this is father in the function of the poron, the other, the last one. And that's why God in heaven is often called father by the Christians. This is the father function in the symbolic function. When I use the word symbolic function, it is borrowed from Claude Lévi-Strauss by Lacan. And Lacan now names it called the symbolic order. I will go in that order. What is the real tragedy is that the symbolic order breaks down. When the symbolic order breaks down, the hell is let loose. It becomes all violent, all killing, all orgy, all blood. And at some point Hamlet begins to talk. I can now only think in terms of blood. So here, so the fact is this. The subject, I italicized and made it a bit colorful with the poor color sense I have, is called the subject. This is a new concept introduced by Lacan, for your kind information. In Freud, you will never ever see this term subject. It is Lacan's little bit. Shoibal digire bole uchcho kore shir. Likhe rekho ek phota dilem shishir. This is Lacan's drop of dew into the psychoanalytic literature. The subject knows that the other knows. The son knows that the father knows. Read it that way. So Lacan points out that there is a direct correlation between what on the side of the subject can be expressed in terms of the other doesn't know, and the constitution of the unconscious. This is what I talked last time about the structure of the unconscious. One is the reverse side of the other. This is a bit, I know, abstract and theological. In our unconscious, why we say the other doesn't know? That's why we can commit all kinds of sins. I often tell the story of Indira Gandhi writing to her father when she was 14 years old. Jawaharlal Nehru was in British prison at that time. He was in prison for 15 years. So Indira wrote to her father, "Father, tell me, I'm now growing up, what is sin?" What can a father tell her from the prison? He wrote that, "Amma, don't do things that you cannot tell your father. If you cannot say anything to your father, that is sin." I think this is called, so we do often sins assuming that father don't know. So we create a second version for the father, which is called perversion. Perversion can be divided into two. Per means father, version means version. So if you make a second story for the father, that is called perversion. You do things, but you don't tell your father. So here you see, the other doesn't, we assume that আমরা যত পাপ পুণ্য করে যাচ্ছি মনে করি কি আল্লাহ তো দেখতেছে না, এটা না করলে তো পাপ করতে পারতো না, এই জন্য বলে কি মুসলমানরা 5 ওয়াক্ত নামাজ পড়লে আসসালাতু মিফতাহুল জান্নাত, নামাজ বেহেশতের চাবি, সব বেবি ট্যাক্সির পিছনে দেখা যায় না? নামাজ পড়লে এটা করতে পারবেন না, কারণ ওই চাবিটা লুকিয়ে রাখলে আপনি সব করতে পারবেন। The other doesn't know, and the constitution of the unconscious, there is a connection between the two. You think that there is a pretension, the other doesn't know, and that is the area. The unconscious is something like that. I'll come to that in a minute. To put it very simply, this is very unsimple, and so let me make it simple. The presupposition that the other doesn't know is what helps to maintain the bar that separates the unconscious from the conscious. We write in the Lakanian algebra S over S. This over thing is called a bar. So unconscious over conscious, or conscious over unconscious. The bar is the more important thing. We sometimes ignore it. Or sometimes you do it as a forward slash. This slash or bar, he says that to put it very simply, the presupposition that the other doesn't know, father will never know, is what helps to maintain the bar that separates the unconscious from the conscious. Okay. Now comes the question of madness. I'm jumping a little bit. Everybody knows that he pretends to be a madman. The problem is that we all are mad, insofar as Hamlet is mad. Can I ask you one question? Why people get so much alert about when I tell the story of Oedipus, or even for that matter Hamlet today? I know I draw your attention not because of any oratory, despite what Shanimas Kabir has said. It's not my oratory, it is the problem that draws your attention. Even if I am a very bad orator, still you will curse me, but you will not curse Hamlet, because he is touching a chord, so to speak, in your mind. I am talking about that chord. This is another quotation from Lakan's seminar, the large seminar on 26 and 27, 1983, printed. Lakan says, he means Shakespeare. Shakespeare chose the story of a hero who is forced to feign madness in order to follow the winding paths that led him to the completion of his act. He is led to feign madness. He said that I'm not really mad, I pretend to be mad. But who knows that who is really mad? Am I mad or not mad? How do you know this? Come here. And even as Pascal says, this is a French thinker of the 17th century, who says, his famous book is Pensée. You can see yourself to be mad along with everyone else, even to be mad with everyone else. That means after feigning madness for too long, you may be mad. Led to feign madness and led to be mad along with everyone else. Feigning madness is thus one of the dimensions of what we might call the strategy of the modern hero. Sir, this word modern is not my invention. This is Mr. Lakan's. Okay, sir. So I often steal. My whole writing can be called a plagiarism if you do not put the whole thing. Unless I am making a presentation on him, I cannot quote so much. Okay, now comes the question. This is another difficult one. It's called veil of castration. The other is that we know our father is all powerful. Who is called father? Father is powerful, or the powerful is called father. Actually, father and phallus is the same thing. The father is a phallus. That means one who can do everything. Sometimes modern half philosophers like Foucault and others say, oh, power and knowledge. I call them half philosophers for a particular reason. You will see that. Because they despise philosophy and they are philosophers themselves. So I think I'm not unjustified in calling them half philosophers. Lakan calls himself, by the way, anti-philosopher. So what are they saying? This. Castration means deprivation of power. Those of us who think that we are all powerful, when we discover that actually I am not all powerful, there is a limit to my power, then I feel castrated. Castration comes from the Jewish tradition, from circumcision. But circumcision is only a part of the organ. But if the whole organ is taken back, that is called full castration. And we are now happy that we don't have to be castrated all the way. But reality says this. In Hamlet, the other knows and makes this known to the subject. When father comes say that I was sleeping, I was betrayed, he admits that I was not all powerful. Though I was holding the chair, the throne of the king, actually I have been betrayed. That means there was someone who could overpower me, either by wit or by treachery. So once the question is this interaction between two things, the knowledge of the father and being communicated to the son, it became knowledge of the subject. Now we are accusing the subject of inaction or inability to act, incapacity. So here is the question. Castration. So what is at stake? At stake with Hamlet's knowing about his father's knowledge is the difference between the fact that there are two facts, and I am opposing this to, this is Lakan's argument actually. I did not quote Lakan all the time. At stake with Hamlet's knowing about his father's knowledge it is a second degree equation, knowledge about a knowledge. It is not a simple knowledge. I know about the fact that my father knows. Then what is my problem? Two problems. Is the difference between the fact that the other doesn't exist. Father is dead, physically he does not exist. But father exists too much as a symbolic father in my reality. I bear his name, I am Hamlet Jr., I am Hamlet the Dane. So he says, between the fact that the other doesn't exist, what does it mean? Which is another way of saying that the other is subject to castration. If you can die, that's why Surah Ikhlas, all Muslims say, Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad, wa Lam Yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. There is none like him. He did not give birth to anybody. He is not born, therefore he doesn't die. That is the sign of beyond castration. But anybody who is a king cannot be a king because he dies. So what doesn't die? Well, his position. Yes. But Roman Empire lasted about 1000 years, Mughal dynasty 350 years, all dynasties die. Then still the place of power doesn't die, at least after primitive communism. Whatever has happened, this is castration is our destiny, which is another way of saying that the other is subject to castration. The word destiny is translated into Bengali, you know, niyoti. That means whoever doesn't have a yoti. Yoti means in Bengali punctuation, a full stop, jyoti. So ni jyoti is niyoti. So it is your niyoti. That means there is no stopping of this repetition of the eternal cycle. This is what Mr. Gautam Buddha Siddhartha wanted to get rid of. This cycle of life is always recurring. Its eternal return has to be stopped somewhere. Unfortunately, this is not within our power. You cannot stop your river. So what happens? The other fact is there. On the one hand, you do not exist. On the other hand, the fact that the other nevertheless functions. That is, it has a palpable symbolic role and efficacy. I beg your pardon, my friends, some of the things are not very clear. What is symbolic role, what is function? But you have to take note of certain things so that we can return to them later. So let me first give you the view of the jungle, then we will cut the trees. It is this difference that get abolished in Hamlet. This is the nature of the tragedy. What difference between these two? The father is dead, but father's power remains on him. So these two facts and their non-existence together, non-coexistence, it is this difference that get abolished in Hamlet, leading to the breakdown of the symbolic other. So from other I will go to the order. This also remains a bit complex. This breakdown This breakdown of the symbolic other is thus related neither to the fact that the subject knows about the lack in the other. Lack means your incapacity. If there is a lack in you, then you are castrated. Lack means when you cut out a pound of flesh from Shylock, let us say, you want to create a hole there. And when you cut a hole into my heart, usually people who fall in love, they say, oh, she cut a hole into a one-way street into my heart. That is means that you are missing something. And all of us miss. The fact that the subject knows about the lack in the other. At this point, to make it concrete, think of the father as the other. And not to the fact that the other himself knows about it. What is interesting is this. Now Hamlet knows that his father was lacking in something. He was lacking in, for example, adequate espionage and guards and security. His special security force was missing. So, what happened? He also knows it. And the other himself knows about it. But to the fact that the subject knows that the other knows. You see, this is a very abstract statement. The fact that the father lacks something and the father knows it, and that is also not the problem. The problem is that Hamlet knows that his father knows. Once this is communicated, this has become his obligation, but he cannot act. Let's go a little bit down. It is at this point that the knowledge in question can no longer remain unconscious. Now, what do we do when we take a patient in psychoanalytic couch? Freud and Lakan and everyone. We try to lift the veil of ignorance. We want to arouse the unconscious gradually to cure him. But here, in a violent way, the ghost comes and tells him. So this discovery in a violent form of the unconscious, it can no longer remain unconscious. Let us say, where is the unconscious? The unconscious is in a place. So where is this unconscious? It is always the other. Let me tell you one good example. Where is the unconscious of the citizens of Bangladesh today? The Bengalis. It is always the other. It is the Americans, it is the British. That's why we know why I'm speaking to you in English here. One of my friends asked me the other day, why not in Bangla? I said, I am by order speaking in English. Yes, I'm ordered. So, কেমন আছেন? ভালো আছি। বলে ভালো থাকতে বলা হয়েছে। So likewise, this is called unconscious. The unconscious is another, and we try to speak the language of the other. Unfortunately, the other speaks English in the world today, the big other. So everybody is trying to speak English. And that's why I say the unconscious is not in your heart or not in your pocket. It is always in front of you. This is the unconscious speaking. And I am a part of this machine, and you see this. That's why I say it is at this point that, what is that point? When the subject knows that the other knows, then it cannot remain unconscious. It became conscious. The Hamlet's tragedy begins with when his unconscious became conscious. And he could not live under the burden of that conscious knowledge. He could neither leave it alone, he could not live under it. So, as far as the subject can pretend or believe that the other doesn't know, that he doesn't exist, the symbolic other can function well and constitute the support of the subject's desire. This is what we so-called normal people, we live very normally. I come regularly to the job and then go home in the evening and I'm perfectly all right. I know everything, but still I pretend not to know it. For example, whether it is espousal or betrayal of the nation, that's a different question. I always give lectures about the war of liberation, but the way I behave is complete betrayal of that. So that is, I say, read this. As far as the subject can pretend or believe that the other doesn't know. I pretend that the other doesn't know. I believe that the other doesn't know. Here, then I say, he doesn't exist. I said that, oh, we are free. Franz Fanon is another author about whom our friend Asfar Hussain will give a talk sometime in April. There you will see that he talks that why African nations continue to speak French 60 years after their liberation. And why we do the same thing, why in Algeria, after fighting a bloody war for 8 years, they continue to speak more French than they used to do. These are some of the questions I cannot address right now here, but it is, say, as long as you pretend or believe that the other doesn't know, other doesn't exist, then this you can live with your desire, constitute the support of the subject desire. But when this is unraveled, you will see this. What provokes its breakdown is the fact that the subject's knowledge coincides with the knowledge of the other. When you know one thing, your father knows another thing, and there is a bar. So conscious and unconscious can live together. When that bar is lifted, all hell is let loose. It has happened according to Lakan in the case of Hamlet. So Hamlet has a debt to pay to his father. This is the debt of the other. And he cannot pay it, he cannot repay it. Hamlet's destiny niyati is sealed by the fact that he is called upon to set it right. Remember that famous line? Oh, spite, oh cursed time, the time is out of joints that I was born to set it right. It's taken from here. The debt he has to pay, or rather settle, is the debt that triggers the infernal machine, is the debt of the other, his father. What debt the son owes to the father, I will not explain it right now, but then Hamlet's time comes. Hamlet lives in the space of the other. So far I talked about a space. Desire is a space, let us say. His desire is the mother's desire. So it is a question of exact place of the desire. Now let us return to the other axis, time. It is called we live in others' time. Humayun Azad, the dead writer, used to always speak, Ami operation mein janmechila. I don't know whether he understood it or he spoke unconsciously, but it is this. Hamlet lives in others' time. You see, I give you only a few bullet points in honor of ULAB. These are the bullets. When he finally finds his desire, and with it his ability to act, it is in relation to the other. This other is Ophelia's brother. Laertes. He got his desire back when he expressed, now who is Laertes? You will see that the two of them are fighting a duel, a friendly duel rather, and it was also treacherous later, you will discover. So that is one thing. That means the agenda is set by the other and Hamlet acts into it. Next one, he carries out his act during an event arranged by the other, means Claudius and Laertes. He was provoked into fighting this duel, and it was set as a trap by his uncle. Though he himself set a trap for the uncle in the play within the play. He kills Claudius with the weapon of the other. By an accident, their reapers were switched in the duel, and the poisonous one came somehow in the hand of Hamlet. And this is, so we say the other and other and other. He does it at the hour of the other. We know who is the greatest of all others? Death. The hour of the death, when he is already mortally wounded. And he says it in so many words. So, what prompts Hamlet into action, how he regains his desire is here. What prompts Hamlet into action, and although indirectly, to the carrying out of his act, is what takes place in the scene of Ophelia's burial. We know that. This is one of his poems. I just quoted a few lines from Act 5, Scene 1, line 251 forward. What is he? Is referring to Laertes. What is he whose grief bears such an emphasis, whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wandering stars and makes them stand like wonder-wounded hearers? This is I, Hamlet, the Dane. He is now assuming his identity. That means after a mirror image, he gains back his. This is the imaginary desire. Being born, he seems to have found his desire. Lakan says this. He seems to have found back his desire, doubtlessly only for a brief moment. This is from Lakan. Doubtlessly only for a brief moment, but a moment long enough for the play to end. He will face his death. An hour of death is perfectly, absolutely the hour of the other. And he has found it via what remains, an imaginary identification with the other. Here the other is Laertes. But still, even after his this metamorphosis, his change, Hamlet does not simply go on and kill Claudius. He waits actually. So why? After assuming his desire, let us say the first thing he should do is to go and kill Claudius, who was sitting nearby, but he waits a little bit more. Instead, what does he do? He engages in what could be called yet another metonymy. Metonymy, for now, understand as displacement. Named by the side of the name, on the side. Why another metonymy? In killing one, when you kill another, that is a metonymy. In doing one, if you do another, that is a metonymy. But metonymy also has a metonymy, but a metaphoric character as well. But let me go ahead. During which he gets mortally wounded by the poisonous rapier. The rapiers get accidentally switched. He finds himself in the possession of the deadly weapon, learns about the treachery, and only then, already dying, does he kill Claudius. That means his killing of Claudius does not follow immediately. Then his mother says, oh, I am poisoned, Hamlet, and only then he goes. And that is also, I would say, a kind of a pointer. Why he was able finally. Now this is Lacanian judgment. The tragedy of Hamlet is the tragedy of desire that has lost its support in the unconscious. So the source of all this is his father's telling. Hamlet was in doubt whether his father was married, why his mother got married so quickly, but he had no clue. Nobody would tell him. When the ghost comes, let us say ghost is his meditation, if you want to make it materialistic. By his Buddhist meditation, let us say, or his yogic meditation, he found it. Then happened this. Lost his support in the unconscious, in the other, and cannot find its way. The tragedy of Hamlet is the tragedy of desire that has lost its support in the unconscious. When we are always running with our desires, we maintain a bar between conscious and unconscious. Our conscious efforts, our treacheries, trickeries, everything is supported by the separation of the unconscious from the conscious. When the hell is let loose, you have to either be cured or you have to be dead. Here is the question, therefore, and cannot find its way, but can only try to hang on to what remains of the other in the form of empirical others. যেটা বাংলায় আমরা অপর বলি, empirical others. যাহা পর হইও পর নয়, তাকে অপর বলে বাংলায়। অপর বেলা, অপর কাল, অপর মানুষ, অপূর্ব. That surround the hero. In English and French, they have a way of capitalizing and non-capitalizing. For porom, they use capital, and for opor, they use non-capital. Oath, oath, capital A, small a. So, I'm about to finish. Hamlet's relationship to desire never gets a resolution. If you think that what is the Lacanian panacea to this problem, Lakan says, I have no panacea. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not giving you any counter-philosophy to Goethe or Freud. I'm trying to tell you the structure of the desire. It is like this. It has no resolution. What is the cure of desire? He says, there is no cure of desire. There is no cure of suffering. Desire means to suffer. His act is conclusive, unfortunately, only on account of being, most literally, a concluding act. That is his final act. It is a conclusion by default, because it is the last act. He accomplishes it by attaching it to something that is already being accomplished or being drawn to a close, namely his life. Someone else took his life. So now he did complete his own assignment because his life is about to be end. My life is at loss. So I have no more to tell you. This is all. Now I am sure you have a lot more to ask me.
So I think Hamlet till the end is a man of inaction. So he took the revenge finally, but don't you think the exchange of rapier, it is too sudden, too accidental?
Yeah, it says it does happen accidentally. Yeah.
And also he kills his uncle with that rapier of
Yes,
the
sir.
other, as you said.
The rapiers get accidentally switched. He finds himself in the possession of the deadly weapon, learns about the treachery, and only then, already dying, does he kill Clodius. This is a summary statement. The point is that he was informed by the ghost of his father about the whole treachery. But this is a treachery within treachery. He was asked to fight in a battle of honor with his sometime friend. And it was in the beginning assumed to be a friendly duel. Then it turned to be treacherous, and it results in, I would say, in a violent, voluptuous way. So I do not know whether he can still be called a man of inaction. The point was that he has long remained inactive. The point was this, here. He seems to have found his desire at the scene of Ophelia. You might ask this question, why did he lose interest in a live Ophelia? And then all of a sudden when she was dead, his desire came back. Now this is the famous problem, I cannot elaborate on this, it's a famous object, little object A. Probably you, I'm not sure whether you are in that old lecture on Tempest. Caliban as little object A, small object A. Here, Ophelia from her phallus status has now become a small object of desire, the dead one. Like a dead father is more powerful than the live father, it seems like a dead Ophelia has become more powerful than a live Ophelia. So what was problem of live Ophelia? Hamlet lost his desire. He assumed his desire of his mother. His thinking was his mother's thinking. Since probably his mother, as far as I can know, was not a lesbian. She was not in desire for Ophelia, so why he would have desire for her? But when her mother is there, this may be a question you can think about this. Shakespeare talking about homosexuality with reference to Shakespeare is not a usurpation. I mean, I'm not going beyond the boundary, and it is often discussed that way. Probably you had a professor who was talking the other day here about this. This seems to have found his desire. Seems to have. I'm not saying that he found it. Probably that is what is called. Ophelia may not be the cause of desire, but she is an object cause of desire. So anyway, other comments must be welcome. I do not want to preempt all comments. Yeah, please.
Could you elaborate Lacanian sense of real symbolic and figurative?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to do. I wanted to avoid it. Okay, let's go here. I simply say that the real of desire, when we suffer, we all understand, yes. This Lakan says, desire, real, symbolic and imaginary. If we re-examine this first statement, it says that the fundamental structure of the eternal saga, let's take this word saga. This means, in English, if you change this G for a Y and drop the A, it becomes say. Saga means saying, actually, narration. So a particular kind of saga, in Swedish they call it saga, because Norwegian saga, Swedish saga, that means they are old folkloric stories are called saga. So our structure of the eternal saga of man's story is key, which is there since the origin of time, which is key. Desire is our destiny, we desire. But the problem is, Shakespeare brings some modern element here. This is what Lakan comments. What is this modernity? Modified by Shakespeare in the way that brought to light how man is not simply possessed by desire, but we are creatures of desire, but we has to discover our desire and then at some cost and with greatest pain. So this is an insinuation towards the real of desire. You have to pay a price for desire. Desire causes your physical pain. You are possessed by, for example, when men are possessed by like epileptic passions, your whole being is shaken from inside. And another way of saying is this: desire can be expressed in two different ways. One is imaginary. For example, Laertes claimed that he loves his sister. Then he said, 40,000 brothers cannot match my love. That means here Laertes is a mirror image. So in Laertes, Hamlet discovers his mirror image and identifies himself in there. If Laertes can love Ophelia, he says, I can love more than you. So in competitive game or race, I rediscover my desire. This is imaginary desire. It doesn't mean that I don't desire her, but my desire is aroused by. So what is Ophelia here? Lakan uses the term called, she is the object cause of desire. That means because of that object, my desire is aroused. Desire chases an object. Whenever you attain that object, then desire goes to another object. That is why this kind of love has no end. This is empirical and unending. But another desire is this, symbolic, is the desire of the father. For example, I carry my father's name. Most people do. Even in Asia, we don't openly carry it. It doesn't mean that we don't carry. Take an example. In every English sentence, except the very latest modern ones, you have to use a verb. You cannot have an English sentence without a verb. Or you have use one, you have to have verb in the previous sentence. But in Bengali, in Arabic and a few other languages, we know that you can have a sentence without any verb. There are many 19th century and 18th century Bengali books where I see pages after pages are written without any verb. It doesn't mean that we don't do anything. It is a way of representation. That's why I said, even if, for example, all Bengali men do not carry or women for that matter, carry the names of their father in the last name. We just go on. But that doesn't mean that we are less patriarchal. So when I say symbolic desire, a man's desire is the desire of the other. That is the general statement. But this is for the baby classes. When I say an am to make you give you a kind of an imaginary picture of that man. The other is shapeless, but it has a shape. That is called a function. For example, take when I put your face here, everybody loves pictures here. People love graphs, pictures. Why? Because everybody is in love with the imaginary. But when I write the name of this man, Jacques Lacan. Even my friend Shahnaz Kabir also call it Jacques Lacan. Because of this, because we are not familiar with the French names. And this name I cannot pronounce correct. His name would be pronounced as Lacan, but I can always twist my tongue like that. I make it a little. They cannot call Chittagong. Stupids. They call it Chittagong. And we also follow them. So this is called the name of a place. For example, Bangladesh. Amar Sonar Bangla, Ami Tomai Bhalobashi. What is this? It's a symbolic. Sonar Bangla is actually your symbolic expression of your motherland. And some Rabindranath Tagore puts it, Tomar Bodon Khani Molin Hole Ami Noyon Jole Bhashi. You give it a face. That is called the imaginary. Desire can be expressed in many different ways, but there is a residual that cannot be expressed in anything. But tomake emon bhalobashi jaha bhashaয় প্রকাশ করা যায় না. That is called the real. Real is inexpressible. I may even go as far as saying, following Lacan, it is the impossible. The impossible of desire is called the real desire. Now the fact that a son is in love with his mother and father together, and father and mother are now going each other's way, betraying each other, what will the child do? The child's desire will become caught in the real. Caught in an inactivity, in a status that cannot be given a language. We have a very good poet in Bangla. He wrote a book called Jaha Bhashaয় প্রকাশ করা যায় না. That's the name of a book. So what can, বাংলায় আমরা বলি না অনির্বচনীয়, আমি কায় ও মনোবাক্যে প্রার্থনা করিতেছি, আবার বাংলায় কঠিন কোন শব্দ আছে, এটা হচ্ছে এমন জটিল, অবাং মানস গোচর, মানে বাক্য যেখানে যায় না মনও যায় না, গোচর মানে কি যেখানে গরু চড়ে, অ্যাকচুয়ালি তাই তো। গান গাওয়ার সময় রবিবাবু গান গায়ে চোখের জল ফেলাই দিয়ে দাড়ি বিছায় ফেলাইছে বলে অগোচরে। So this is called this real. রিয়াল মানে অগোচর বলেন, যেখানে গরু পর্যন্ত যায় না। মানে আমাদের পশুপালক সমাজে যেখানে গরু চড়তো যতদূর চোখ যায় ততদূর পর্যন্ত বলে গোচর, এরপরে গরু গেলে গরু হারিয়ে যাবে। হুমায়ুন কবির একটা বিখ্যাত কবিতা আছে না, আমিনা নামে, হ্যাঁ, ওই যে মানে মেঘনার পারে যাবে না, হ্যাঁ, সাংঘাতিক একটা ইংরেজ কবির অনুবাদ, এটা রসেট্টির কবিতা বোধ হয়। সো আমি বলছি রিয়াল ইজ দি ইনএক্সপ্রেসিবল ওয়ান। সো দ্য কোয়েশ্চন ইজ দ্যাট desire is not just one kind. Imaginary desire, as illustrated by regaining, it can be the starting point, then it becomes settled in the father. But there is a desire which goes beyond both imaginary and symbolic, but which does not find expression in language. Lakan in the 1950s, he began teaching in 1953, and until 1964 he used to emphasize symbolic. For example, his famous seminar, which is called Rome Discourse, is called Speech and Language, the field and function of speech and language in psychoanalysis. There he emphasized that man is under the grip of the symbol. Symbol means your name, for example. That's a symbol of yours. But it does not reflect your face. কানা ছেলের নাম সব সময় পদ্মলোচন হতে পারে। কানা ছেলে এবং পদ্মলোচনের মধ্যে কোনো সম্পর্ক নেই। কিন্তু একটা ছেলের নাম পদ্মলোচন হতে পারে, সে চোখে নাও দেখতে পারে। This possibility is called the symbolic rupture. You can bear a name completely unrelated to your appearance. তাই না? এই জন্য আমরা ছেলেদের নাম রাখার সময় বউ রাখি আগে যে কালা চাঁদ, খুব ধবধবে ছেলের নাম কালা চাঁদ রাখে যেন সব নষ্ট না হয়। এই যে কপাল বাচ্চা, সুন্দর বাচ্চার কপালে একটা কালো তিল দিয়ে দেয়, তাই না? এই জন্যই। So anyway, desire, I wanted to say this, in order to grasp the problem of desire, ওরা বলেছে কি, লরেন্স অলিভিয়ার শুদ্ধ, যিনি খুব প্রভাবিত হয়েছেন ফ্রয়েডিয়ান ব্যাখ্যা দ্বারা, আমি বলছি নিউ ফ্রয়েডিয়ান ব্যাখ্যা দ্বারা, তারা বলছেন যে হ্যামলেট ইজ এ ট্র্যাজেডি অফ ইনঅ্যাকশন। রাকান সাহেব বলছেন নো, ইট ইজ নট এ ট্র্যাজেডি অফ ইনঅ্যাকশন. It is the tragedy of a man who lost his desire to act. So let us shift back to desire. So is it therefore a tragedy of non-desire? Lakan said no, it is a tragedy of too much desire. And the desire can be explained in this way. So এখন কি বলা যাবে এগুলিকে? রিয়েল, সিম্বলিক, ইমাজিনারি, এই তিনটাকে যদি একত্রিত করি একটা গিরা হয়, নট, KNOT. And how it is expressed? It is expressed in the form of a symptom. So Hamlet's inaction can be read better as a symptom, which has determinants. And Freud uses another very important term, many of you probably will further explore this, is called overdetermination. One symptom can have multiple causes of determination. That is called overdetermination. That has been borrowed from Mr. Freud by such men as the French philosopher Louis Althusser. Louis Althusser, Michel Foucault, Derrida, these are all Lacan's students, as a matter of fact. Since I'm talking about their father, I do not want to talk about them now. And if we go to explore the Lacanian forays into different facets of desire, there are two other talks I envisage to give here. One is, the next one would be on Antigone, Sophocles' character. There, the question of desire is presented in a different symbolic dimension. There it says that there is the woman's desire. What is woman's desire? We'll talk about two women's desire. One is Antigone, the another woman probably you are not familiar with is called a woman called Céline de Coufontaine. That's a French character from the 19th century play. About 19th century. It was written in the early 20th by a man called Paul Claudel. So that woman's desire was that love is giving what you don't have. How do you give what you don't have? We will see that with reference to her. One of the famous definitions of love offered by Lacan is that love is giving what you don't have, what you don't possess, or what you don't even own. But how to give it? That is almost near real. But we'll be talking about the symbolic desire in the case of Antigone. In that case, symbolic desire's case, Lacan's injunction is this: ne cédez pas sur son désir. Do not give up on your desire. The word desire has been brought back to English through the French word désir. Because in Freud, the word is Wunsch or wish. And it has, in Hegel, there is a word called Begierde. And that has been brought to English through Lacan's reusage of it. Freud is now being completely retranslated into both French and English after Lacan's intervention. Lacan pointed out 1001 mistakes, not mistakes, as opposite translations of Freud. Freud spoke of trieb, for example, T-R-I-E-B. Yeah, let me show this here. I have a pen here. In early translations, they translated this as instinct. Instinct of any animal. But now, after Lacan's intervention, it is now being retranslated into English as drive. Because the German and English are cognate languages. Trieb is the word of drive. And similarly, there are many other such translations that have been. Even in Sophocles' Antigone, the current English translations you read, all of them are wrong, as a matter of fact. For example, I give you one example. This one I presented at the Modern Language Institute, Dhaka University, the previous week. When Professor Prabal Dasgupta was visiting, I gave an example. I cited the original Greek and showed that how translation is wrong. Those of you who are reading it, please mark lines 332 to lines 372. There are only 1353 lines in that play. I cannot cite you act and scene there because it is not done that way. There is a song by a chorus about man where it says that man has done such splendid things, it has conquered everything, but it has not been able to conquer one thing, namely death. And death here, okay. Actually, death is another example of real. Why death is another example of it? Just think about it. In all conceivable literature, can you find one example where any man can say, I am dead, without lying? But everybody believes. When Odysseus returns, I often cite, Sir আসেন, আপনি বাইরে দাঁড়িয়ে আছেন এখানে, আমাদের প্রফেসর শামশাদ মুর্তজা আসছেন। I'm sorry, Shahnawaz can give you a seat. So the point is this, what is real? Real is impossible, I said. For example, to say that I am dead is real because death is real and it is impossible to say without lying that I am dead. So there are many other examples. A symbolic is a bit more confusing. Antigone's desire is more symbolic in the sense that some people say that why Antigone acted against the king's ordinance. King said that don't bury. I will talk about this in the next lecture in great detail. But she said that I am going to bury it because it is not Zeus's law. She also cites that it is not Dike's law. Dike means justice in Greek. D-I-K-E. we say that these are autochthonous gods under the soil. There are two systems of religious belief in ancient Greece, like in Bengal. Even Muslims and Hindus all believe in some kind of a syncretic form here. All goes to Pir, Badar and etc. Even Muslims and Hindus go together. But they also believe in Allah Bhagavan. So this system was also, I imagine, there in ancient Greece. So she cites two sets of gods. She said it is not the law of Zeus, of the Olympian god. Neither is it law of the case. She is not, some people misinterpret it that way. The law of justice has told it. To make my life simple, I often also misinterpret for the sake of the students. But the real explanation is that there is a third reason, which is in Greek called arte, A-T-E. What does arte mean? It means the blood relation, even if it is a criminal blood. I am in love with my brother. She gives a reason which is not acceptable to the poet Goethe or Freud even. What is it? She said, in memory of Polynicus, she says, brother, I have taken risk of my life to bury you. You know why? If you were my husband, it would be very easy for me to find another husband to replace you. A husband is substitutable. If you were my child, I could have another child with my husband or someone else. But what else to do? Since you are dead, now I have to tell you one truth. My parents both are dead. I can never have a substitute brother. My father and mother both being in Hades, he says, how can I have another brother like you? So you are irreplaceable. To me, both brothers, Muktijuddha and Rajakar, are alike. This is the law of arte. She said, it's not the law of GK, it's the not law of Zeus. This third thing, Lakan is the first, as far as I know, to find it out. That Antigone's imperative came from the law of arte. He calls it criminal blood relation. My father is a criminal, so we are all children of criminals. What can I do? But this criminality was not only permitted, but encouraged by the gods. So the gods are also partly responsible for this crime. And she was adamant enough to say this. So anyway, I think this about this desire, I say this to explain my friend Azizul Russell's question. The symbolic desire is maybe expressed not only as desire of the state, it is a desire beyond the state. It's a desire of the criminal family. It is a desire of the family. So where does society begin? In ancient Greece, at least, it began with arte, with the blood relation. Of course, in all feudal or tribal societies, it begins that way. The pretension that we have a civil society is more a pretension than a civil society. It's a pretension. So our societies are also largely still at its substratum. They remain tribal societies. Their allegiances, their actions. So Antigone is just being honest. So the title of that seminar, as I have so far given, is called that do not give up on your desire. Some people might think desire is a criminal thing, but no, desire is not. Desire is in the unconscious, but desire is in the other. And the quintessential other is the symbolic. For Antigone, her desire lived in her family. So she says this, if I live another 75 years, what is the use of this 75 years? Today I am 25 and I am being laid down to the grave. But if I lived another, how would I live with this memory that I disgraced my brother? I could not bury him. Just for the sake of my life? That will be cowardice. In fact, it is the very theme of that play. In the very beginning, when Ismene and Antigone was having a conversation, Antigone says, hey, did you hear what the king's new ordinance is? She said, yes, Apu, we heard it, but what can we do? We feeble, weak women. He said, no, you save your scheme, but I go my way. For us, there are two different obligations. So, I'm not saying that this one is better, the one is other, but that is, I call the, Ismene was led by the imaginary, and Antigone was led by the symbolic. And her death was a real pain. I mean, to have the clamon somewhere. Sir, please.
No, I'm just wondering.
Please.
Because you're moving to next week, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not moving. Actually, I'm here.
Yeah. So, like one of the problems in Hamlet is basically like so this Oedipus complex, and especially like one interpretation goes like this: like Hamlet wants to kill a proxy father or pseudo father, Claudius, But the problem is like, if we take Oedipus complex into account, so what he is supposed to do in terms of Oedipus complex, so his uncle has already done it. So he has killed the father. Now, can we have a kind of a new Freudian interpretation of it with reference to in the name of the father?
Yeah, actually it took this issue up, though I could not do enough justice to it. I appreciate your question. Actually, a few slides later I said this. This is the Freudian explanation. I already discussed this, but yeah. This is in Freud's reading, in killing Hamlet's father and marrying his mother, Claudius realizes Hamlet's unconscious desire. This actually, Mr. Ernest Jones wrote a book in 1948, which is called Hamlet and Oedipus. And he actually wrote an article in 1910 on Hamlet and Oedipus. It is the development of that. In fact, Freud's own book, in later editions, in Interpreting Dreams, he adds successive footnotes to explain this. The child's desire for his mother, or the Oedipal desire, to eliminate the one who seems to stand in the way of his desire. Since Claudius has already realized it, then this is Freud's own explanation. He said, then why should he kill him? He has done his job. But Lakan criticizes this. You will see in the next one. According to Lakan, this is the Lacanian answer. Lakan says that the question of desire comes in a place. Yes. Desire at a stake is far from being Hamlet's desire. This is Lacan's explanation. It is not his desire for his mother, rather it is his mother's desire. In French, the expression is very cute. It's called a désir de mère, which can be translated in both ways. So Lacan actually catches on this, and he says, so let's go to original criticism. If we accept, Lacan says, the Oedipal perspective, that means new Freudian perspective, is this. Hamlet is driven by two tendencies. One is the authority of the father, and the other is his desire for his own mother. Let us take it. So in that case, what both these tendencies should lead him in the same direction to kill Claudius. I mean, this is a very fallacious argument, I'm sorry to say. Freud himself offered, saying this, that if Claudius has realized my own unconscious desire, then why should I? But even as a child, if I could not tolerate my father, why should I tolerate my uncle? That should give me a reason to actually eliminate him. For the same reason that I wanted to eliminate my father, this reason will eliminate my uncle also in my imaginary. So I think this is Lacan's take on this. Okay, sir.
The second part of the question would be like, so what would be the symbolic, significance of Claudius as well as the imaginary?
Yeah, I mean, he has already, the symbolic significance is this. One is the symbolic father. The father who is dead now is more powerful. This leads us to another dream of a patient of Freud's, who told him, one day a man was watching over the dead body of his son. And then for 3 nights he had struggled with this son, and the son died and he was falling asleep. After all, the real is that you fall asleep. So then he asked an old man, guard in the house, to keep watch over the son's dead body. And there, in those days, were days of candlelights. And he asked the man, please watch over the dead body, let me sleep on the other room. In the other room, he had fallen asleep, but he kept the door slightly ajar, so that a ray of light was falling in this room. Then he fell asleep within a few minutes. Then after 5 or 10 minutes, he woke up. He saw in a dream, which woke him up. This dream says that he saw that his son, who has just died, is not dead. He is alive. And he comes to his father and tells his father, Father, don't you see I am burning? And that anxiety woke him up. Then he came to the next room, saw that really a candlelight has fallen on the dead child's arm and he was really burning. Because the old man who was keeping guard, watch over him, just fell asleep. So from this, Freud takes this question. This father, while asleep, he saw exactly the same where his son was awake and not dead. This is the fulfillment of his wish that his son did not die. Then he says that, Father, don't you see I am burning? So this father-son relationship is a very complex relationship. We cannot really theorize it enough. But Lacan says that when he got this injunction from the son, so the question is, father alive, son dead. But the alive father knows the knowledge, his condition about his dead son. Now we reverse it. So Lakan says the relationship between a dead father and a live son is exactly its reverse side. Dead father therefore is more powerful over him. That is the symbolic father. Because symbolic father can die. Real father, when he dies, he dies. So there he describes the castration. Real father is castrated, but the symbolic father remains untouchable. That's why in Freudian myth of Moses and monotheism or totem and taboo, he always says that when the father is dead, then the children cannot have control over his woman. When they, oh, father is the monopoly of all women. But when they kill the father, this is a bizarre myth, but the story is that then after the death of the father, all children relinquish their claim over the father's woman. Then they say father's women are taboo to us. So I think something like this. Claudius is alive and he is treacherous and he is filthy and he is not splendid, incomplete everything, he says this. But the injunction from the father in heaven is inviolable. So I would say the symbolic father here, his real father who is now dead, namely senior Hamlet, has grief over junior Hamlet. But Claudius is appearing as a false father. So you can say he can occupy temporarily the place of a imaginary father. Remember when he was being sent to England, father said that go to England. So he says that goodbye my mother. He said, they say, why did you say goodbye my mother? He said, to me, father and mother is the same. If I may misquote it, I will say, to me, therefore, goodbye my mother. So his desire and his rejection of this false father was already manifest there. He knew that. So I think we can explore the question of the relationship between the stepfather. And I also actually discussed it somewhere here. Yes. Why and how can she desire this spiteful, inadequate, unworthy object? Why? In comparison with his father, this king of shreds and patches. Then says, how could she abandon so quickly this splendid object that was Hamlet's old father and go for this wretch that can give her but some fleeting satisfaction? You know, then the language becomes very, I would say, raw when he started reproaching his mother, saying that, and also tempt him when he's bloated. And he did not, I have not discussed many things. One of them is this prayer scene where he found him very close and did not yet kill him. Because it is also due to the injunction of the dead father. Dead father said, I was killed in the full bloom of my sins. So he, according to the belief system, he said he would not kill him while he was praying. Claudius. So he waited for his moment. Now see, my father died when he were in the full bloom of his sins. And this man, now in praying, I cannot kill him, because if I kill him, then he will be either in heaven or purgatory. I don't want to give him that chance. Yes, sir.
Exactly. That's the point I was trying to mention. That Hamlet's father, senior Hamlet, he's in hell. And if he killed the father in the closet, then he would have gone in heaven. So why the big other is actually in hell? Because he has been released, from hell for a certain hour too long.
No, he told it to him. The question is this. It is a question of desire mixing with knowledge. In one of T.S. Eliot's early poems, you will see this is mixing fire with desire. It's like this. There is a story. Behind the story is that the father of junior Hamlet was killed in the full blossom of his sin, as he said. But now the question is, this man, he thinks, is involved in an incestuous relationship. So he asks his mother to tempt him to the bed, so to kill him there. The difference is now why his father is in hell. This is the question of castration. We all assume that our father is, I would say, is all powerful, is absolute, like the kings who is in the absolute power. But the truth is that my father is dead. That is one kind of castration. But there is one more castration, that he is insane. So one castration is the fact that he passed away literally, empirically he is dead. So symbolic fathers do not die. Only real fathers die. Symbolic father lives on, we carry on their name. But then this symbolic father is also accountable to another big other. So we think of an other which has no other. Lakan talks about that big other. What is the last other? The last other is that other who has no other. আমরা বাংলা সুন্দরভাবে বলি যার দক্ষিণে আর দক্ষিণ নাই, এখানে যার উত্তরে আর উত্তর নাই। The father has no other father. So then we mix it up with theology. But in the context of this game, the question is one of inheritance. For example, Hamlet Jr. would have been the inheritor. But how come his uncle comes in, breaking the law? Because it is the law of inheritance that is also involved. I'm talking not about property, but of the name. So and this will come again in our my fourth lecture on Sindhu Kufoten, then play is called the hostage, where a woman has to marry under pressure one of her old servants and then give birth to a son. That son will carry the name of the family. And then at the last moment, when the wife gives her life to save her husband, then the husband on her dying bed asks her, you have given me your life for saving me, but tell me one thing before you die. Did you ever love me? She said no. She said, I can give you my life, I can give you a child, but I can't give you my love. And then she dies. Anyway, there is a long story behind this. So I would say this is called, she was there to upkeep the light of the family. Her family tradition, this is in Napoleonic France. Her family was royalists, they fled the countryside. So she was maintaining the family's last fire. In French word, feu. So she was keeping the feu. And finally in order to save the Pope, who was hijacked there, to save the Pope's life, she had to agree to marry that man, who would give him a safe passage. And then there she asked this very hard question which you are asking me. She said, one country person, priest comes to her. Priest Badilo comes and asks him, it is up to you to save the life of this Pope, 80-year-old man, Pope Pew. He says that Pope is God's son, why can't God save him? Why I have to sacrifice? So there are other questions. There is castration of the other also. The uncastrated other that we imagine, according to Lakan. Lakan is an atheist. Though he was born of Catholic tradition, he said the uncastrated other does not exist. So in his other way, he says all others are castrated. So this leads to a kind of consequence which I cannot discuss in this class. It's a bit difficult to discuss that. He says the unconscious speaks of the other, but the other, in other words, is castrated. And castration means it does not exist. আমি বাংলায় সুন্দর করে বলি সবাইকে যে আপনি ঘোড়ার ডিম দেখেছেন, সবাই ঘোড়ার ডিম বলি। The big other is also a ঘোড়ার ডিম. It is there in the language, but you cannot show one. সুকুমার রায়ের ছড়ার বইতে দেখবেন এরকম বহু ধরনের প্রাণী আছে যেগুলো ভাষার মধ্যে সম্ভব. Language makes all things impossible. You don't have a direct signified or referent of a thing, but language makes it possible. It takes meaning from other words. So since our system is system of others over others and others, it becomes apparently meaningful, but it is devoid of any signified. That's why Lakan's one of the dictums is called this, the signifier is the primary one. কি অবস্থা স্যার, চাটা দিবেন নাকি লোকজনকে? Okay, then. So I would like to finish on that if you don't have any more questions. I can answer one more question if someone is dying for that.
Sir.
Yes, please. And that answer. Shubha, thank you. Bol.
This book might say the fundamental linguistic basis of desire is metonymy.
Okay. Oh, all right. Desire is a metronymy. That's what like I said. Why desire is a metronymy? Because desire slides from one to the other. I first fall in love with A is gone. So should I therefore stay there? I'll fall in love with B. It's very simple. That means our desire is, as an empirical series, is practically an infinite series. And infinity is an example of metronymy. But what is metronymy actually? Let us take this. Nymi means name, meto means cross, across. So for example, we translate. I will give you an example. How many languages can we learn? One person. In the beginning, this is the famous writer Walter Benjamin. He thinks that there was originally one language, and someone called Nimrod created the confusion in the Tower of Babel, and so many languages have been created. Nimrod himself, according to the Jewish tradition, spoke a language which is meaningless. But how can a man whose language is meaningless, not understandable, I assume it is like the language of Caliban, which is not understood by Europeans, and they call it non-language. It's a blah blah blah, it's a thing most brutish. Then, as a result, 100 other languages are created. So the first question is, why are there more languages than one? And since there are more languages than one, which we cannot prevent, we have to translate. So this is the justification of the profession of translators. But the question is, how accurately can we translate? If everything could be expressed in one word, for example, if a tree is a tree in all languages, then we did not have to translate into other words. But the fact is that there is no one word fixed for one thing. First there is pod, then there is padartha. It is not the other way around. You don't have padartha and then pod. That is called the primacy of the signifier. Pod means tongue, pod means pa actually. So pa থেকে বাক্যের মধ্যে যে শব্দ আছে সেটাকে পা বলি আমরা, তাই পদ বলি। So the pod creates পদের অর্থ। এই যে এটা একটা পদার্থ আমি যেটা হাতে ধরছি, বাট আগে দেখতে হবে এটার নাম কি, পয়েন্টার। Pointer is more important than this thing. You said, oh, how did it work? So you go to another thing. Find out words. Words create, believe it or not, meanings. Not meanings create words. But for one meaning, there are so many words, as languages are. This is an example of good metonymy. Desire is metonymic. Allah created Adam and Eve, and they were living very peacefully probably, and in happiness. Why did a snake came? You know what is a snake? Is a common symbol of what you call, for lack of a better word, sexuality. God has spoken, but you don't understand it. That means a snake came and say, eat the fruit of this tree of knowledge. Is it not also tree of desire? So then she became pregnant. Where would she deliver? She would have to come to the hospital called this earth. She came to deliver here. And then God said that you will have to earn the bread by the sweat of your brow. Mathar gham paye fele tomake jibika orjon korte hobe. That's what we are doing. So this is the land of desire. This is the land of exile. It's the result of desire. So knowledge and desire got intermixed. Therefore desire is a metonymy. Desire is always multiplied. There is no end to desire. But it is also a metaphor. In the case of language, some people say, oh, is one language a metaphor of another? This is my fundamental theoretical question. Paul Deman, Jacques Derrida, Walter Benjamin, all of them, if you would excuse me, professors of English and humanities, I would say that they are all wrong on this question. They all think that there is one original language, believe it or not. And therefore all other translations are approximations, inadequate approximations. I would say no. All languages are metonymies. They are not metaphors. They say Hebrew is the original language and Greek is only a metaphor for Hebrew. English is another metaphor. Bengali perhaps another. I don't go that way. I mean, I'm only contending. I'm not giving you the truth. I'm only giving you my position. I say all languages are metaphors. No. All languages are metonymies of each other. For example, this thing can be called a tree. It can be called a brickshaw. It can be called a brickho in bad Bengali pronunciation, and it can be called a gach, it can be called a toru, and go on and ab and what I don't know many others. So the question is, that is what desire is a metonymy. The world is created out of desire. There was only one tree, probably in the Garden of Eden, and now we are planting many others. From hunting and gathering, we have become cultivators, and that doesn't make us happy enough. One of our brothers killed another brother, Abel and Cain, and then he therefore will be nomadic. And from nomadic we found the urban areas. We have Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Baghdad and all. Now we are still, I don't know where we are anymore. Thank you, sir. So Shanwat, if you have any appointments. So what will be our next session? Probably next our custom is this. We want to hold a seminar-like thing. This is called a colloquium, by the way. Though I am the one privileged to make all the colloquies and you are not talking. Our position is that every alternate Thursday we do it. But fortunately, the next Thursday will be 17th of March, which is a birthday of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangabandhu and father of the nation. Therefore, we cannot hold it on that day. Probably, therefore, the next day would be 24th. On which we will probably meet. So you will be informed properly. Thank you.